to Brendan O'Neill now. He's the editor of Spiked Online and he's a columnist for The Big Issue. Good morning.
Hi.
Now, I don't think you and Laura are going to see particularly eye to eye in this conversation. You feel that this has been a great victory, right?
Absolutely. I think it's a wonderful day for democracy. A huge number of people turned out. They made their voices clear. They spoke loudly. And that included people who normally don't take part in politics. Poor people, working class people, people on council estates. Something about this election made huge numbers of people want to get involved. They gave a very clear answer, and now we need to act on that unless we want to destroy democratic politics for a generation.
But surely, I agree with you, actually. Like Jake, I agree with you. I think it is fantastic that many people came out and voted and were heard and have been seen to make a difference. I do think that is great because it will hopefully reinvigorate politics and make people realise that their vote counts and they can be taken seriously. However, it has since come to light that pretty much all of the policies that people were voting for are turning out to be fake. So, for example, I personally would like some kind of next referendum, not because I didn't like the outcome, but because what people were voting for has turned out to be wrong, and therefore it's a different situation now.
That's completely untrue. The idea that 17.5 million people regret their vote or didn't know what they were doing is just.
I'm not saying they regretted their vote. I'm not saying they regretted it, but I'm saying that new information, quite important information, has come to light. And surely we should put not this second, but once we've gathered the actual facts about what may or may not be on offer, should we not ask everyone again just to see, now that they know that in fact the NHS isn't going to get the 350 million that was plastered across the bus and the various other promises they made? Maybe, I'm not saying they will change their mind. Maybe they'll go, no, actually, we still want to leave. In which case, fair enough. But at the time, they were given certain information with which to work, and that information has turned out to be untrue.
If elections were overturned because some of the information given in the run-up to them was not true or was a fallacy or whatever, no election would ever stand. This is politics. This is what happens. People made a rational decision. People decided they don't like the EU. Yes, some of them are concerned about immigration. They're more concerned about our ability to control it rather than being bigoted, in my view. And they have these concerns and they express them. What really worries me is this elitist rage that has descended on Britain over the past couple of days. We've got politicians saying the result must be overturned. We've got commentators describing these voters in the most disgusting way: xenophobes, racists, idiots, ill-educated. They don't know what they're doing. I think what I'm really worried about is this kind of anti-democratic fury that is coming from the leaders of the Remain campaign, which really suggests that they have no interest in democracy whatsoever. And I think the argument for a second referendum is taking place in that quite poisonous climate.
You haven't seen any or heard from anybody who's gone, oh, hold on a second, I didn't know about this. I thought that this was going to happen. I was told that this was going to happen, and it's not going to happen now. But that's fine. I'm still happy with it.
Of course there are a few voices in the media. The media keep dragging out like 7 or 8 people who say, oh, I regret the vote I made. They're not talking to the millions upon millions of people who made a rational decision and answered a very, very simple question. The question wasn't about immigration. It wasn't about the NHS. It wasn't about any of those issues. It was, should Britain stay or leave the European Union? People aren't stupid. They understand the question and they understand the answer that they gave to it. What worries me now is that this kind of contempt for the public that's coming out, which is, I think, the worst I can remember in the 20 years I've been writing about political stuff. This is the worst outburst of snobbery and contempt for the public that I can remember. And my view is that ordinary people already feel really distant from politics. And this fury that is now being heaped on top of them, the apparently stupid, racist old people, these idiotic white working classes, the message they are being sent is, you aren't good enough for politics. You aren't clever enough for politics. You should leave politics to us people in the Westminster bubble and the media bubble because we've got PhDs and we know what's going on.
We're talking to Brendan. Sorry, hang on one second. Yeah.
That is going to destroy the idea of democratic politics if we let that go on.
We're talking to Brendan O'Neill, editor of Spiked Online. I just wanted to ask you, do you think that homosexuality should be legal?
Of course.
Jonathan makes a really good point on Twitter. Thanks for your point, Jonathan. He says, sorry, some issues can't be trusted to the people, e.g., no way would they have voted to legalise homosexuality in 1968.
This is outrageous. Some of the issues can't be trusted to the people. Who do these people think they are? People who make statements like this. Who do they think they are? What makes them special? Is it because they went to university? Is it because they read The Guardian? Is it because they live in London?
Is it because they have a mandate to protect the rights of people, even if those are going to get overrun by the majority of other people?
They do not know how democracy works. Let me explain to them how democracy works. Sounds like they might be the stupid ones, if you ask me. Democracy is the right of a majority of people to determine the political destiny of the nation they live in. That is what happened last week. It was an act of democracy, a clear majoritarian statement. To undermine that now, I think, would be outrageous.
So I'm trying to picture a world where we still have public executions. Homosexuality may well be illegal. I mean, do you feel that that's the world that we should live in if that's the will of the majority of the people?
But you are talking about things, it's simply incomparable. The implication seems to be that what people voted for last week was as bad as if we suddenly brought back public execution.
No, I'm saying that it's the same principle.
Hold on, no, or was as bad as if we suddenly stopped all gay people from being allowed to have sex. There's this idea that people did something so bad, so unspeakable, so horrendous, that we must override what they did. All they did was say that this institution Britain has been part of for 40-odd years, we don't like it and we think we should leave it. It was a very simple statement. There was no evil. There was no desire to destroy people's
Nobody
lives.
is saying anybody... No, well, maybe some people are saying it's evil and stupid and
Okay,
racist,
so
possibly,
why are
but
you
it is the
comparing
fact
it?
that the information they were voting on has since been pretty much completely overturned. And if you're right, and if they go, no... those are not the issues that I was voting for, I just want to leave the EU, then what's wrong with having another referendum when so much... And then they can still say again, nobody's saying we're overturning it and we're going to outvote you because you're stupid. We're going, can we just ask the question again now that new and very important, frankly, information has come to light? Or we are saying...
Completely untrue.
What's untrue? That new information has come to light? Information has come to light. How can you argue with that?
The idea that all the information they voted on has proven to be wrong.
Well, let's ask them, shall we? Shall we find out? Because it is a very...
Hold on.
Yep.
Or that all the facts they voted on are untrue is completely false.
How do you know? How do I know? How do you know what they voted for? These are very, very important issues about the money, about control. And it turns out that the people who are promising we'll have more money and more control have gone, well, actually, not actually money and not actually control. And we won't be able to control our borders.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Let's let Brendan...
If you would let me finish my sentence instead of shouting at me.
Shouting.
The reason I know is because a survey suggests that the main reason people voted out of the EU was not immigration. I think that came second or third. It's because they don't like the fact that certain laws can be written in Brussels without our democratic consent. That is true. That is the main reason people voted out, and that is true. So
Well, then let them say it again. Why can't they say it again? Why can't they say it again? But there are lots of people who have since publicly reacted to these the supposed lies or mistakes that they made.
I don't know how many people there are. I mean,
tiny numbers.
Do you not, Brendan? Do you not think that there's something of an irony that what we've done is basically given more powers to more people who have not been democratically elected, i.e., the House of Lords?
Yeah, well, I want to abolish the House of Lords. I also want to abolish the monarchy. I am a Democrat. I want as direct a democracy as possible. That was my reason for wanting to leave the EU. Other people who want to leave the EU will no doubt be pro-monarchy. They might be in favour of the House of Lords, although I wouldn't bet that too many people are. But now the thing is we can have those debates here in the elected system that we have in Britain, rather than having lawmaking and directive-making from Brussels, which people were just annoyed about. And the thing that worries me now is, this idea of a second referendum, it sounds so nice. All we want is another act of democracy. Please, let's not forget about Ireland. Ireland voted against the Lisbon Treaty. It said it didn't want a new EU constitution. And they were forced to vote again. And they did so under the most horrendous circumstances, because the EU was effectively saying, don't forget how much funding we give you, which will be withdrawn if you dare vote against us. The whole commentariat was saying, don't be so stupid next time, you idiots. How about reading the Lisbon Treaty instead of just voting against it? The entire political and capitalist class in Ireland said to the Irish people, if you vote against this a second time, this country is screwed. So they were blackmailed and hectored and lectured and treated like scum.
Isn't that what happened to us over the last few months? We've all been hectored and blackmailed and threatened.
And they were forced to vote a second time. And the idea that second referendum was a democratic moment is absolutely laughable. Their democratic will was overturned in a really horrendous way. And anyone in Britain who really believes in democracy has to stand up against any attempt to thwart the democratic will of the people, because otherwise the thing that they will destroy is far worse than the EU. They will destroy the idea of democracy itself. They will expel millions of ordinary people from politics. If you really want that, you should keep pushing for the thwarting of what people said. If you don't want that, if you think democracy is actually quite important, then you have got to defend what people said in that referendum last week.